few pictures, and I hope that this will help you to understand the idea behind varus osteotomy, that is a video, and when to do a valgus osteotomy. So this is a picture showing a normal hip joint. Next slide. This is the case of a Perthes where part of the femoral head has become avascular. Usually it's a anterolateral or the superolateral part, which is in the weight bearing area, is affected. Next. So the aim of treatment, whatever treatment we decide, the aim of treatment is very simple. That next slide. The area which is affected, which has become soft, we try to push it into the as much coverage as possible, so that the loading on that area is distributed on a wider or a normal area. You can see that when the hip is abducted, the normal bone comes under the weight bearing area and the loading over the affected area is reduced. So this process, like taking the hip into abduction, is called containment. So that's the concept. Based on that, there are various options available to us. So there are 4 options for containment. The first option is abduction brace. So in which the child keeps the hip into abduction, or the brace keeps the hip into abduction. The second is broomstick plaster. So the difference between the two is the brace family can remove, the plaster family cannot remove. The next is the varus osteotomy, and how it will work, that we will see in the next slide. But varus osteotomy is also a part of containment, and some surgeons, they prefer pelvic osteotomy. So these are the 4 options for containment. Yeah. So next concept is like, how does VDRO work? So we saw this slide that when hip is abducted, the affected area comes under the acetabulum and that's covered. So now the question is like, how to keep this hip in an abducted position. So if we osteotomize the femur like this, and then we shift the distal fragment into abduction, in the adduction, then what will happen? The proximal fragment will remain in abduction, but when child is walking, the limb is now straight, it's perpendicular to the ground, and at that point the hip, the proximal part of the hip will remain in abduction. So that's the concept of varus osteotomy. Next. So then there was a question like, how much varus one should consider. So to answer that question, we need to understand that each degree of varus we carry out, that reduces the amount of abduction. So suppose we carry out a 5 degree of varus, that will reduce 5 degree of abduction. So if you do too much of varus, means like you try to bring the affected area into the center by too much varus. So suppose you do it 25 degree of or more varus, then that much amount of abduction is restricted. And we know that for walking, for daily activity, we need abduction. Similarly, if you do too much, if you do a too little varus, less than 15 degree, in that case, there will be not an adequate containment, because the affected area will not come under the inside the hip joint or inside the acetabulum, and then you will not serve the purpose. So too much and too little, both are not good. So next slide. So then the second concept is, when we say VDO, varus osteotomy, then we are saying D. D is for derotation. And to understand that, let us look at the axial pictures. So we are looking at the axial picture. One is showing the acetabulum and the other is the proximal femur. This is axial cut. So now you can see that in the anterior part, there is a affected area. So when we internally rotate, next slide. Yeah. So when we internally rotate, the affected area comes inside the acetabulum. So now the question is like, how to keep this proximal femur in internal rotation. So one option is child can constantly walk with keeping the hip internally rotated, but that's not physical all the time. So then the idea is like, when we are cutting the femur for the varus osteotomy, we externally rotate the distal fragment. So when we rotate the distal fragment externally, what will happen? The limb or the foot which was pointing inwards when the proximal femur is internally rotated, now it will point straight. So when person is walking, the foot will be in a neutral position, the knee will be in a neutral position, but foot will be internally rotated. The proximal fragment will be internally rotated. Next, again we need to remember, like whenever we carry out external rotation, the internal rotation is reduced and that reduction remains permanently. So too much external rotation is also bad. The second concept of containment is, okay, so let's understand, like when you do abduction, for that we carry out varus. For internal rotation, we are carrying out derotation. For flexion, we are doing extension. However, again, we need to remember, like whatever extension we carry out, that much amount of flexion person is losing. So usually we don't go for too much of extension component in a patient, because otherwise he will have a problem in sitting, in squatting. Next, then let us understand like how pelvic osteotomy work. Again, the concept is very simple. We saw that when this hip is abducted, it comes inside. But here, instead of rotating the femur, what we are doing is we are rotating the pelvis. So we are rotating the cup, and so that we are taking it outwards, so that the affected area comes in the center of the acetabulum. That is what we want to do by pelvic osteotomy. Next. Coming to the most important question is the hinge abduction. So to understand that concept, let's continue to understand the problem again. In a normal hip, the center of rotation is at the center of femoral head. So black dot is the center of rotation. Next. Now in some cases of Perthes, there is a affected area, and in that case the hip extrude, means it literally displaces. This is a most significant event of the whole condition or the overall condition, because once this hip subluxates literally, now the affected area comes directly under the rim of the or the border of the acetabulum, and on continued walking, next, this area will get collapsed. Now you can see that this area, the affected area, is depressed in the center. So this is a magnification of the same image, and you can see that now the part of the affected area is collapsed, and the lateral portion which works as a bump, and it does not allow the hip to abduct. So that's called the hinge abduction. So now when we try to abduct, next slide, the abduction takes place at the, so now because the abduction is not taking at the center of the femoral head, but it is taking place at the edge of the acetabulum, that's called the hinge abduction. And you can see in this figure, whenever person tries to abduct, the medial joint space will open. So that is what we see in the diagnostic criteria of hinge abduction. Next. So hinge abduction is basically a poor prognostication sign. If you don't correct it, it rapidly leads to osteoarthrosis. Next. So now the question is how to confirm hinge abduction. The static examination like X-ray or MRI, they have a limited role, because we saw that in hinge abduction, we want to see that is there a medial joint opening on abduction. So for that, the best investigation is a dynamic investigation. And for that, we need arthrography and then examination under anesthesia. So under anesthesia, patient's muscles are completely relaxed. We put a needle, we put a radio opaque material or the contrast, that's called arthrography, and then we examine under image intensification. So that is for the confirmation. And then how we go for the treatment, that is we are going to see next. Yeah. So now under IITV, we look at how much adduction is possible. So next slide, when we see that when you adduct the hip, this affected area comes out. So the hinge or the lateral part of the femoral head, the bump which was not allowing the abduction, moves out. So now we see that, and now let us understand the concept of that. Suppose there is a person who has a 30-degree adduction, and further abduction is possible up to 0 degree. So now this person is lacking abduction completely. We know that we need abduction for activity of daily activity, like walking, we need abduction. So in that case, valgus osteotomy will shift this range of motion, whatever range of motion patient has, to the functional range. So to understand that concept, let us see that we are talking of the left hip. The dashed line, which is vertical line, is 0 degree. On a left side, we see a 30-degree adduction. Now, Hitesh, can you keep the one slide back? Yeah, and then there is we are looking at the 30-degree abduction. So this is a normal range, 30-degree adduction to neutral to 30-degree abduction. Now, in the case of hinge abduction, next slide, please. Yeah, this is a situation. From 30-degree adduction, it's up to neutral. Beyond that, abduction is not possible. So now when we carry out a valgus osteotomy, this range which is there is shifted from 0 to 30 degree. So now patient has a better functional range. So now what happens, let's see that. Next, please. So when you do, you see that this is a better situation. You take out a wedge and then you shift the distal fragment laterally. So that's the valgus osteotomy. So now you can see that the affected bump or the bump which was not allowing the abduction is moved out, and now person will be able to carry out abduction. So this is what the concept of hinge abduction or the valgus osteotomy for the hinge abduction. Next. The question which time and again you ask, like when to carry out valgus osteotomy. Next. So valgus osteotomy is to be carried out only when there is a hinge abduction. It's basically for a late presenting patient who are in stage 3A or onwards. It's not for the early cases 1A, 1B. It's not for that. Basically, when they come late, we call it they have missed the bus. And in that case, we are doing valgus osteotomy as a salvage procedure. On the other end, the varus osteotomy, which we do it for the containment, is for the early stages up to 2A, and it's a preventive surgery so that the femoral head deformation can be avoided. Yeah, so that was about a hinge abduction. Any question about hinge abduction or valgus osteotomy? Yeah, Hitesh, you can stop sharing, and then if they have a question, we will take question. Or yes, any question for the hinge abduction or valgus osteotomy?
Yes, anybody having any doubt, please proceed.
Basically, varus should be done in early stage of disease, and valgus should be done in a late cases with established hinge abduction. So the postgraduate should not get confused between varus and valgus. Varus is a preventive surgery. It will prevent the femoral head deformation, and valgus osteotomy is indicated in established case of the hinge abduction or late stage of disease where the preventive surgery will not have any role, where the varus osteotomy would be harmful rather than helpful.
Okay, if there is no question, then we come to the case. Before that, a small announcement. The Pediatric Orthopedic Society of India is presenting the second lecture. That's we have called it postgraduate Gurukul. And now this time the topic is relapse and the late presenting clubfoot. The aim of keeping this session mainly for the postgraduate with the idea that you will be coming across this case in the long case. So to give you idea like what are the questions examiner can ask and what are the common mistakes you make, for this session will be very useful. It's next Friday, not this, the next week Friday. And we have a Soumya Pak who is from Kolkata. He is going to give a talk. And two very famous Sadgurus, Dr. Matthew Varghese from St. Stephen Hospital, New Delhi, and Dr. Alaric Arujis from the Wadia Children Hospital, Mumbai. They are going to give us insight about the questions. The registration is free, but it's compulsory. And you can visit this site, tiny.cc/POSI, and you can register your name. Thank you. Now Hitesh will take over the case.
Okay. We are going to discuss the two cases. So these are very commonly kept in the DNB as well as the MS exam. So this is the 5-year-old girl present with the limp since she started walking, and the parents notice shortening on the right side. So these are the main chief complaint. So what are the possibilities from history? Very commonly it will be asked to the students by the examiner, what are the possibilities of diagnosis?
DDH, sir.
Always DDH? Yes, correct. Any other thing?
We have asked possibilities, so we are not asking for the diagnosis. We want you to think slightly in a broader sense, and what could be the real possibilities. That is what we are asking.
Any other possibility? One is DDH, agree. Any other possibility?
Developmental Coxa-Vara, sir.
Developmental Coxa-Vara, very fine. Very common in India. Another thing also, very pathology is very common in India.
So one is DDH, the second is Coxa-Vara. What is more common?
Post-septic sequelae.
Post-septic sequelae.
Very important aspect, the post-septic sequelae, whether it is dislocation or a Tom Smith arthritis. So always keep the possibilities by the history. And if you are aware about this different pathology, we will ask the history. And that is a reason which history would you ask for is very, very relevant when you suspect about the different pathology. So always ask about whether it is the painful or a painless. So these are the very important. So what history would you ask? Suppose you will suspect about the post-septic or the developmental Coxa-Vara.
For post-septic, history of fever or any previous surgery, post-discharge from the
post-discharging sinus would not be there in case of the neonates. Okay. So,
sir,
Any history of
ICU admissions, sir?
yes, very good.
Any history of IV antibiotics and admission to the ICU?
Correct. Yes, second. Then anything else?
Any history of childhood aspiration, sir? Arthrotomy or aspiration of joint?
Okay. Treatment, aspiration and arthrotomy. Correct. Any other point?
Since when history of high fever, sir? High fever running for 2 to 3 days and then subside.
Yeah, in case of the neonatal septic arthritis would not present like the high fever. Sometimes the child will present in the septicemia, but it is always used to ask the pseudoparalysis of the child. And many times patient or the child comes from the interior part of the country, there would not be any high fever or aspiration or arthrotomy, and that is the reason sequelae would be common. So you need to ask the commonest problem is the preterm delivery, low birth weight, NICU admission, and restricted range of motion or the pseudoparalysis. So that are the very important points always ask to rule out infection in infancy. So we'll go ahead with the history. The child has got the painless limb. Can anybody say painless or painful? Does it make difference? 5-year-old girl. We don't want to divert, but the last time what case was discussed?
Parthi, sir.
Parthi. So it's always keep in mind also when older than 5 years, the Parthis would be a possibility if there would be the pain. Okay. So the child started walking, that is also important. Except the walking, all milestones were normal. What is the history? If milestones are delayed, what does it suggest? Painless walking.
Cerebral palsy. Cerebral palsy.
Yes, so that is also very important. So always ask the pain, always ask the preterm, always ask the history of infection, milestones, the limp is progressive or not, and what the activity of daily living is normal or not. So except sitting cross-legged. What does it suggest? Sitting cross-legged is affected? Does it suggest something?
Abduction is lost.
Abduction is
Abduction.
Yes. So the
external
abduction.
rotation.
So there is no previous history, no history of neonatal admission. Prenatal and perinatal history was normal. And these are the examination findings. The examination, the abduction is grossly restricted. All the movements were normal. Rotations were exaggerated. The asymmetrical thigh crease were present. Globular palpable mass was present on the gluteus. 2.5 centimeter shortening was there. And vascular sign of Nereid was pos D. So what are the possibilities?
DDH.
It's very important. So if somebody is going to ask that what are the possibility here, you should not shy away to say it's a DDH, because you will have all the positive points in the history that favors DDH, and examination also favors DDH. Did we miss any point on journal examination? Anything related to DDH? That would be very positive in many girls.
So, metatarsus adductus.
Packaging disorders like torticollis.
Torticollis, metatarsus adductus,
congenital torticollis.
CTEV, as well as sir, sometimes there is a congenital hyperextension of the knee also.
Yes. So what is that? That is correct. So what is that?
Packaging disorder.
Huh?
Ligamentous laxity.
Yes, ligamentous. Very
Ligamentous.
common. So always check about the clubfoot. Always check about the neck and the rule out of torticollis. DDH, metatarsal adductus, and torticollis are tried. And second, the ligamentous laxity, gross ligamentous laxity is very, very common associated with the DDH. So always examine those points on clinical systemic journal examination. So these are the X-ray. Can you read the X-ray, anybody? What is the possibility? What is it now?
Sir, can we say neglected posterior dislocation?
The dislocation, the neglected word
in the possibilities, not before this X-ray.
No, never. Neglected word should not be used according to WHO. Okay, so even neglected clubfoot, neglected DDH, neglected, don't read. Use the word untreated. But again, what does it mean? So you say untreated posterior dislocation. Why there would be untreated posterior dislocation? What do you think? So it is traumatic?
No, sir.
Then why need to have posterior dislocation? So, okay, don't leave the examiner for anterior dislocation and posterior dislocation. Okay? Should never in mind anterior or posterior. It's a DDH. What is DDH? It's a group of disorder where the hip is unstable. Includes from subluxation, dislocation, subluxatable, dislocatable, frank dislocated, and acetabular dysplasia. So always use the correct terminology is developmental dysplasia of hip. Do not use the terminology also CDH. Use the terminology as a developmental dysplasia of hip. Don't say posterior dislocation, anterior dislocation. Use the correct terminology, developmental dysplasia of hip. Okay. Can one person can read the X-ray?
Yes, sir. This is an X-ray of pelvis with both the hips of a immature skeletal, showing, sir, on the right side, there is a gross upper migration, basically dislocation of the hip in the upper outer quadrant, and there is pseudo acetabulum formation also at that place, and also there is a decrease in the acetabular index, as well as there is widening of the teardrop, and in the neck is also short on the right side. The neck is short, and also it seems to be there is increase in the neck shaft angle, sir, as well as the trochanter is also appears to be short compared to the opposite side, sir, in size.
Okay. Do not comment. All your points are correct. I don't want to put a controversy. You can say the right side is dislocated, the teardrop is correct, it is in upper outer quadrant, there is acetabular dysplasia. Do not comment on the neck shaft angle and trochanter when there is not in identical rotation. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Never ever comment on that, because always comment on the particular X-ray basically from inside out. Start with the hip, epiphysis, metaphysis, diaphysis, then acetabular side. Okay, so
Yes, sir.
the pelvis is also looks. Always comment on the acetabular side, whether the acetabular index is normal or abnormal.
Yes, sir.
So it is the very high acetabular index, and very truly you said there is a pseudoacetabulum or false acetabulum is present. Okay,
Yes,
so now let us say, what will you suggest? Now, what will you treat that and why? Straight away, we cannot go into that because these are one more point. Would you think so? It is a post-septic? Because
No, sir.
No, sir.
Why? Correct.
No, this
Sir,
just femoral head is intact.
Acetabulum will be normal in post-septic stiffness.
Acetabulum development is always secondary to the anatomical alignment of the proximal femur. If hip is dislocated, acetabular dysplasia may be present.
Femoral head
shape
is
of
normal.
capital epiphysis is maintained.
Yes, correct. But is it possible to have post-septic dislocation?
yes, sir. There may be
Sir, it is
dislocations,
possible.
but there will be other telltale signs also, sir, apart from dislocations of the infection,
Yes,
sir. Like, sir,
Yeah,
there
like-
may be asymmetric growth of the head. There may be some irregularities in the surfaces on both the sides, sir. Like on acetabular as well as the hip side, and there will be. Hello.
that will not disappear within few years, acetabulum and that, because it will be very common in first year or second years. 5 years more, that would not
Yes,
be
sir.
common. But you are correct. There would be growth abnormality of the proximal femur. The metaphysis may be short. There may be sclerosis. There may be irregularity on either side. And anytime if you see with dislocation, always keep in mind this is not a DDH. That may be the post-septic dislocation hip. One point which is not favorable in this child for the clinical examination and history is the right side. Left side is very common. Right side is not very common. So whenever there is no left side, think about something which is abnormal. Keep in mind always. This is case of the DDH. There is no doubt about it because there is no growth abnormality seen on this X-ray. Okay, what will you do?
But I'd like to put her on traction first.
Okay, you like to keep on a traction. Okay, one option.
How many days? How many days?
So traction first, and then observe the containment with serial X-rays after 3 weeks and 6 weeks. If and we'll check. We can check with the examination under. We can check with the examination under anesthesia. If the containment is there, I'd like to finally give a spica to her, hip spica to her, 1.5 hip spica.
That we'll discuss. So you mean say traction followed by the close reduction, correct?
Close reduction, sir.
Why?
Sir, in case on traction, I get the head contained in serial X-rays. On abduction, I get a fair containment. Then only then I'd like to give a close reduction. Only then I'd like to give a spica.
After 2 years, there is no point of close reduction. Only need open reduction.
Sir, actually, yes, sir. After 2 to 3 years, can we do a close reduction? Is it possible that we can do a close reduction?
Sir, another thing,
That's
sir,
why
I'd also like to. Another thing, sir, I'd like to also like to look for adductors. There might be adductor tightness.
Okay.
So I'd like, I might need a adductor tenotomy. for containment.
Okay. What do you think? Let's go back to the X-ray and tell me what do you think about the adapters? What do you think about the adapters?
I think that adapter might be tight, sir.
Yes, in most of the cases, such a high riding DDH, adapters are always tight. The reason is because already the femoral head has gone up, so it's going to be short. Yes, so adapter tenotomy is one of the component of treatment, whether you go for a closed reduction, whether you go for an open reduction. So let's come to the question, why closed reduction and not open reduction? Someone said that I will go for open reduction. So those who are in favor of open reduction, why open reduction? And those who are in favor of closed reduction, why closed reduction? You are afraid of opening, that's why you want to go for closed reduction?
So because of the soft tissue, in the acetabulum develops, prevents the closed reduction.
I didn't get you. Yeah, it's capsular
contracture. Because of the long duration of the dislocation, there will be the soft tissue will develop in the true acetabulum.
Yes.
So there is a capsular contractures which will prevent a closed reduction. So we have to remove that tissues from the acetabulum and release the capsules.
Okay, so that is in favor of open reduction. But someone said that I will go for closed reduction. So I will go for the traction first and followed by closed reduction. Why that? I think it was Dr. Verma who said that I will go for closed reduction, traction followed by closed reduction.
Sir, yes. I said that.
Yeah, sir, so why we would like to understand the reason, why so?
Sir, only after observation of serial X-rays at 3 weeks and 6 weeks, I'd like to see. I'll do serial X-rays once at 3 weeks. If suppose it's quite high riding, suppose if it comes down, and in 6 weeks I see it further down and see the level of trochanters both at the same level, and under anesthesia I see. And on examination under anesthesia, I see that there is adductor tightness, and I'm doing adductor tenotomy, and it's getting contained. Although that might be a reason that there might be soft tissues which might impinge, but still I'd like to conserve it first.
Okay. What is the reason you think about closed reduction? Why do you think so? Closed reduction is preferable at 5 years of age. What is the reason? Why not open reduction?
So because the pseudoacetabulum is still shallow. I mean, the head still has too much to grow. I mean, if we the pseudoacetabulum is quite shallow, sir. That means that there is not too much of weight bearing being done earlier. Sir, I cannot justify, sir. Sorry.
Okay, fine. Okay, fine. Just before that, there is a question like why we really want to treat this patient. If we don't want to treat, already 5 years have passed. If this surgery is really a difficult surgery, why we really want to treat them?
A closed reduction will help in concentric reduction of the hip into acetabulum, which helps in mutual growth of each other, sir.
Right. No, the question is I'm asking slightly different. Why we really want to treat this patient? Why we don't want to...
Patient is complaining of limp, and there is also restriction of abduction, which is hampering the activities of daily life.
And also there are complications in the future which may if it is going on for a long time, there may be avascular necrosis also. It is also a possibility, sir, later on.
So you are worried about the avascular necrosis in future. That's the reason.
I will clarify one point. Untreated DDH. I will clarify. Untreated DDH will not have AVN. Okay. Very rarely you will not have the. If it is AVN, it will be because of either the closed reduction or open reduction. Okay. So untreated DDH AVN is exceedingly rare.
Yeah, so that's not the reason. So AVN is not going to occur. So what are the reasons why you want to treat?
Also,
there will be secondary discrepancies in the hip or
Secondary?
spine line. Deformities in the spine, maybe upper
Secondary
valgus is and
osteoarthritis.
Osteoarthritis of the, okay, right.
So gross shortening. in the
Maybe we
future.
can give a, like it's 2.5 centimeter, we can give that much heel, or we can give a sole 2.5 centimeter. So shortening part is taken care of.
So there is abductor shortening also that will give a Trendelenburg gait to the patient.
Yeah,
So
so
it will
shortening, yeah, shortening can be taken by the sole, but the gait abnormality cannot be solved by sole. Yeah, so Trendelenburg gait will persist even after compensating the limb length. So that's one thing. Then what else?
degenerative changes in the spine will be occur in long term.
Yes, right. So we need to understand that untreated DDH leads to following problem like shortening, but shortening can be tackled by compensation. The limb, in spite of correcting the compensation, the limb will persist. And the most important thing, it leads to pain at the hip and in the low back pain. These are the last two are the reasons for treating them so that they don't get complications in future. At this stage, they have only limb and the shortening, but in future, the other two are to be added, and that's why we want to give them a treatment. Okay, so now we are on the treatment, the close reduction and the open reduction, two are the two options. Just we will cut the discussion so that we can go further. In India, most of the examiner would expect that at the age of 5, you say that I will go for the open reduction. I don't say that the close reduction is not a good option, because only last month we have one doctor from Japan and he showed us that even at this age we can carry out a close reduction. So I don't say that close reduction is not a valid option, but in India for your exam, I would say that at 5 years, please say that I will go for open reduction. That will save a lot of controversial issues, and probably you will be able to go forward in the discussion where you can give them a better answer and your chances of passing the exam will be much more. Next, please. Hitesh, yeah.
The reason for the not doing the close reduction, it can hamper the blood supply, and the forceful close reduction is not good for the hip rather than doing a atraumatic open reduction. Okay, so don't ask for the forceful close reduction. Second aspect, the traction will not address the intra-articular problem, it will only address the extra-articular problem. So the traction role is also controversial, and the literature also suggests the avascular necrosis would be also, it will be equivocal. Some people said it is the traction can lead to the AVN and traction can lead to the less frequency of AVN. So it is the controversial, but by and large, more than 18 months of age, this is the standard treatment all over the world. More than 18 months of the age of the child, it will most likely to require the open reduction. Okay. So
yeah, so Dr. Verma, please remember, like if you really want to pass exam after 18-month case, you just better say that open reduction. Again, I'm saying that you are not wrong. There are some people in the world who are doing traction followed by close reduction, but please don't say that in exam.
Sir.
Yeah.
That would not be the skin traction. That is a skeletal traction, gallows traction, and the number of the complication and compliance of the patient should also be taken care. Okay, so it's not only serial X-rays. We need to take the traction and gradually abduct, and you need to know about the type of traction and traction care. If you have never seen in India, don't tell that. We are not telling that it is wrong, but if you have never seen that, if nobody believes that, that would not be an option more than 5 years of age.
Sir.
Okay, so we'll say which are the structure you'd like to release. These are the important extra-articular structures that are the muscle which arise from the pelvis and inserted. Anterior it is rectus and the ilios vas. The medially it is the adductor. The laterally it is the abductor and TFL. Sartorius is may not be required, but the medial, anterior and the lateral structures which are arise from the pelvis and attached to the femur, that has to be lengthened in order to bring the femoral head down. but we do not address the structure which is on the posterior aspect. So that will come to that point on that what is required for that, and the rectus femoris, what to say, the anterior, medial and lateral. These are the extra-articular, the component we need to lengthen. And as somebody mentioned very lightly, there are some soft tissue inside the joint. So what are the soft tissue? There are the contracted or constricted capsule. Particular capsule is very tight on anteromedial aspect. The capsule is lax on supralateral aspect. So in order to get the reduction, we need to release the inframedial capsule wide open. The head can go inside, and that cannot be addressed by the traction. Similarly, the supralateral aspect of the capsule is lax. We need to tighten after the surgery. That is called as the capsulorrhaphy. The structures, ligamenta teres would be hypertrophied. That is to be addressed. The transverse acetabular ligament has to be released. The pulvinar, it's called as the fibrofatty tissue inside the acetabulum. And the labrum, which is also hypertrophied. But labrum, it is called as, in case of the DDH, it is called as the limbus. It should not be cut. If it is inverted, it has to be everted. And very rarely, if it is really very tight, we can release the linear incision single and get it in corrected. So these are the intra and extra articular structures. Would you like to add something for the femur? Why need to shorten the femur?
Because it will put excessive pressure on the vascularity.
Okay, why
it will stretch the neurovascular structures.
Okay, it will stretch the neurovascular structures. It will stretch the neuro. Why it will stretch it? We release everything, no? We release everything.
No, sir, only muscles were released, but suddenly lengthening of 2 centimeters will stretch all the structures in the lower limb.
Yes. So if we don't shorten the femur, it can lead to the disastrous complication is the avascular necrosis. And at this age, the femoral head is supplied by only end artery. If lateral retinacular vessels get torn, it can lead to the permanent deformation of the femoral head. And excessive pressure at the hip joint can lead to the permanent stiffness of the joint. So always check about the intra-op, how much to shorten and why to shorten. And again, I addressed when I said we release anteriorly, laterally, and medially. We do not release the neurovascular and the posterior structure. And that is the reason it will be tight. Would you address varus? Would you do varus along with the shortening? Yes or no?
No idea, sir.
No idea. Okay. So not very commonly, it is always to do the varus along with the shortening, but shortening always. So whenever you will be asked what are the options, first option is open reduction. Second, additional option, always add the femoral shortening, because 5 years the structures are tight. Don't tell about varus, but varus would be required in case of the coxa valga, where you'll see the excessive abduction and head is going inside. Then only it will require about the adding about the varus. What about the rotation? Dhiren bhai has explained nicely for the Perthes rotation. Would you do the same, like doing the external rotation osteotomy? Okay, if you don't have idea, I will tell that if the femoral head or the neck shaft angle is coxa valga, along with that, that would be excessive femoral anteversion, where we can see after reduction, the internal rotation is more than external rotation. In those cases, we need to correct the femoral anteversion. Otherwise, the hip will remain subluxated anteriorly. In those cases, we have to add the rotation. Do about the rotation osteotomy. So open reduction, femoral shortening, and derotation occasionally, very, very commonly. Would you add why acetabular procedure? Would you add anything on acetabulum? That is called as acetabuloplasty.
Yes, sir, because there is shallow acetabulum, there is dystasia of acetabulum. So
if it is 2 years, 1.5 years, shallow acetabulum, would you do that? Every case will you do acetabulum shallow? No, acetabular dysplasia may be there.
The age is more than 18 months. We'll do the
Pemberton or Salter, depending upon the size.
No, we are coming to that question later on. The question we are asking at present is, would you carry out acetabular procedure? That's the first question, and why?
To contain the hip into the establishment.
In this case, sir, we have to see the stability intraoperatively and see the coverage for the acetabulum. If the coverage is insufficient, then we'll go for the pelvic osteotomy, sir.
Okay. What about the X-ray? You have already seen the X-ray, and what is your conclusion?
If the radiographic changes are present on the acetabular side, sir, then definitely.
Sir, it looks a large volume acetabulum, so we might have to add sir, a Salter's osteotomy to that also.
Okay, right. But the question still you have not asked is or answered is why acetabular procedure has to be added. Or like Hitesh already asked you in the other word, if you are doing the open reduction at 2 years, would you do the acetabular procedure or not?
Acetabulum still has the remodeling capacity, sir. So we want to contain the hip into the acetabulum. So we will carry out the acetabular procedure, sir.
Okay. Now you are answering like you are saying the acetabulum has a remodeling capacity. Then why we really want to do the acetabular procedure?
It depends upon the acetabular coverage, sir.
Okay, coverage. Okay, right.
Yeah, first thing.
See, the reason is like the acetabulum develops in response to the presence of femoral head. When there is no femoral head in front of the acetabulum for 5 years, the acetabulum has missed the opportunity for development. So it is going to remain shallow. And for that, at 5 years, always it is wiser to add acetabular procedure. Which acetabular procedure that we are going to see in a minute. But the first important question is at 5, please say that I will go for open reduction. I will add femoral shortening and acetabular procedure. This is what the complete prescription for a surgical treatment at 5.
The reason is that what you said initially, that the remodeling potential is very high up to 3 years. So if the child present less than 3 years, acetabular procedure might not be required. But if you want to take a chance after 18, you can say acetabuloplasty, you are safe. But more than 5 years, acetabulum doesn't have capacity to remodel. What Dhiren Bhai said is exactly so. Always add acetabular procedure after 5 years of age. And that is also one of the option why should not we do for the close reduction, because those cases with the close reduction always require the acetabular procedure always. Okay. So now second question, which procedure? Which acetabulum procedure?
Pemberton for larger heads, sir. For larger acetabular.
So when you see here in this X-ray, what was there?
You can
somebody said osteotomy, somebody said Pemberton osteotomy, somebody said
redirectional osteotomy.
Redirectional.
The acetabulum is shallow, sir. It needs reshaping. I will go for Pemberton osteotomy.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what is difference between Salter osteotomy? We'll not confuse more. What are the difference between only 2 osteotomy we'll say, Salter and Pemberton. What is the difference between both osteotomy?
Sir, Pemberton osteotomy is reshaping, so it will deepen the acetabulum. But Salter osteotomy will redirect, but it won't, the volume will not be changed.
Okay, so it is a dimension osteotomy is a Pemberton osteotomy and a direction osteotomy is a Salter osteotomy.
Yes, sir.
One more point, when the acetabular dysplasia is very, very severe, the Salter osteotomy cannot correct the more than 10-15 degree of acetabular dysplasia. If the acetabular angle is 35-40, it cannot be corrected with the Salter osteotomy. The prerequisite for the Salter osteotomy, the volume should be equal. Whenever volume is large, capacious acetabulum, we need to reduce the volume of the acetabulum in order to match the femoral head. In those cases, Pemberton or Degas osteotomy is indicated. So whenever you can give the complete answer, open reduction, femoral shortening, acetabuloplasty, but when you see what kind of acetabular osteotomy, you can see whether the volume is big or not. If the acetabulum is big, you can do about the procedure like the Pemberton or a Degas osteotomy.
Okay,
How
just yeah. Before that, let me summarize what Hitesh said. So, just to give you the full idea or the complete answer, if there is a child more than 1.5 years, we would suggest open reduction. If child is more than 2, we would add open reduction to femoral shortening. So open reduction plus femoral shortening usually by after 2 years of age. If child is more than 3, in that case we will add acetabular procedure also. And in acetabular procedure we have 2 options. If it's only direction problem, then Salter osteotomy. If it's a volume problem, then we can go for Pemberton or Degas. Right, so that's what the complete spectrum, depending on which age the child is presenting, you have to modify your answer.
Okay, yeah. We will go for the next question. How late would you operate? If child is 5 years, suppose the child is 8 year, 9 year, would you do the same? Because this is very commonly asked question in your exam, postgraduate exam.
After 8 years, there will not be any acetabular remodeling, sir. So at that time, only salvage operations can be done, sir.
Why? Why you do think so? The acetabular remodeling. Why salvage? What salvage operation would you consider?
It will not remodel because the triradiate cartilage has been already fused by the 8 years, sir. And a salvage procedure is.
What will have an AVN?
No, sir. Triradiate cartilage will fuse.
Oh, okay, triradiate cartilage is fuse. Okay, fine.
And a shelf procedure and Chere's osteotomy can be done, sir, for at that age as salvage procedures.
Sir, in old age, open reduction plus femoral shortening. If the 7 or 18 years, I will go for triple innominate osteotomy or Gans osteotomy. If the joint is congruent, if the joint is not congruent, I will go for a salvage procedure like shelf and Chiari osteotomy.
Oh. Any other point? Any other person want to have anything? Would you agree or not? Or I'll go for the next point also, because we'll clarify some point. Any other different point?
Okay, let me give you a clue. If femoral head is not in the acetabulum, what will be the effect on cartilage? What do you think? Like cartilage will remain normal when there is no opposite articular surface for 5 years, 6 years? What will be the effect on cartilage?
Overgrowth of medial cartilage.
Overgrowth of medial cartilage. But what about the quality of cartilage?
It won't be.
It won't be healthy. So for 5 years, 6 years, it has not bear any weight. And then all of a sudden you put the femoral head inside, and then you ask acetabular cartilage to start weight bearing. It will be very difficult, and that cartilage may not respond to the weight bearing, and that may not allow the full function of the cartilage. So don't just look at the X-ray that putting the femoral head inside the acetabulum, but look at the things which are not seen on the X-ray, that's cartilage. And cartilage usually don't respond after 8 years or so. So it's not advisable to put the femoral head inside the acetabulum after the age of 8 years. So the normal, this is broad guidelines which we are suggesting. Your examiner may not agree to this, but as a broad guideline, we would suggest that for a unilateral, you can say that I will not operate after 8 years. If it's a bilateral, I will not go for surgery after 6 years. Why there is a difference that Hitesh will explain you, like why there are 2 years difference between the two.
Yeah, I want to add some point before the going for unilateral and bilateral. The postgraduate have mentioned Chiari, shelf, and all the option for that, I like to give the one important clue and message. Do not embark any acetabular osteotomy unless head is reduced. If head is not reduced, don't do Salter, don't do Pemberton, don't do Dega, do not do salvage operation like Chiari or a self. All the acetabular osteotomy are indicated if head is reduced. I will repeat, all the acetabular procedure are indicated if the femoral head is inside the acetabulum. The reason for not touching, because rather than making, as Dhiren Bhai said, cartilage is not good, acetabulum and femoral both go for deformation, it will not be matching. If both are not matching, the child will develop the early osteoarthritis because of the non-congruency of hip joint. And that is the reason we do not operate after a few years. Why there is difference between bilateral and unilateral? Bilateral, the symmetry has been maintained by the nature. Because the symmetry, even the child is waddling, the symmetry is maintained. If you touch it, you can make the child into symmetrical onto the asymmetrical. The child may develop one side AVN, one side shortening, one side deformation, one side incongruency. So people do not operate even after 5 years of age. So 6 years, not only that, bilateral, very, very strict. Unilateral, because it can lead to the limb shortening, and that is the reason the surgeries are indicated even in older children in order to prepare the acetabulum for the future surgery. That is also for the salvage surgery. There are different salvage surgery or that, but that is the reason there is a difference between unilateral DDH and a bilateral DDH. Okay. Again, the late surgery, as I said, platform for THR and disadvantage is cartilage quality is not predictable. Okay, any questions? So these are the child 6 years, it is there. So what has done is the open reduction, femoral shortening, derotation, fixation, and the acetabuloplasty. You can see the acetabular coverage, and the child has got the good coverage, and there was not limp in this child. Any question?
Sir, in late onset, can we go for pelvic supportive osteotomy, sir?
Yes, you can see the pelvic support osteotomy. So when should we do for the pelvic support osteotomy? Very good. You can go for the pelvic support, but when consider pelvic support osteotomy?
Unreduced DDH is long duration. So anyway, this pelvic supportive osteotomy, like 100 years long duration, there is a cartilage damage will be there. So we no need to reduce the head into the acetabulum. That we can use the proximal femoral portion into the acetabulum as a supportive. So can we go for this procedure as a pelvic support osteotomy?
Yeah, in your exam you can say that, but it is not supporting the acetabulum. It is a proximal femur bypass surgery. So it will prevent what Dhiren Bhai explained for the hinge abduction. Similarly, we can keep the proximal part in full adducted position, so the child limping would be addressed. That is a reason we can do the pelvic support osteotomy. Again, we should not do pelvic support osteotomy in very young child because it will remodel. So ideally, it should be there after the second growth spurt. When the child is near maturity, it's not going to remodel. Otherwise, if you do at the 8 years or 9 years, the child will have the remarkable remodeling potential, and the valgus will remain corrected. It will correct by the nature, and you will lose the valgus. Amount of the abduction would be lost because of the remodeling. So you should not do. Second issue, if you do the valgus osteotomy or a pelvic support osteotomy, future THR would be an issue. So in that point, you can think about the activity of daily living, socioeconomic status of the patient, and explain that what they want. If you do the PSO or valgus osteotomy, it will be lifelong lasting. But the future THR would be issue. It is a very, very difficult to do the THR following the pelvic support osteotomy. So you can think about the pelvic support osteotomy versus total hip replacement. Always Give the answer according to the need of the patient. That would be the ideal answer in your exam.
Sir, do we have to add an femoral lengthening procedure with pelvic support osteotomy? And another question is, sir, when we do this triple innominate and double innominate osteotomies, which has been mentioned in the book, sir, when to do this?
Yes. So whenever when Salter works up to the 7 to 8 years, because there is the hinge of the shoulder osteotomy at the pubic symphysis. When it becomes a stiff, it will not rotate. Where the redirection osteotomy in a child more than 8 years, their acetabular dysplasia would be persistent. There it will require a double or a triple. If triradiate is fused, that is called as periacetabular osteotomy. So you can imagine there are 3 osteotomy for the redirectional osteotomy. Less than 8 years is a Salter osteotomy. Double is cutting about 2 bone, that is a double osteotomy. Cutting about all 3 bone, ilium, ischium and pubis, that is a triple osteotomy up to 8 to 14 years of age. After triradiate get fused, again triple would not be a good option. It would be periacetabular osteotomy. Is it clear? So all the osteotomies are indicated in order to correct the acetabular dysplasia. It is not in unreducible hip. It is indicated. These are the osteotomy indicated to correct the acetabular dysplasia to get the normalcy of the hip joint. All are not indicated in irreducible hip. Got it? So the first and foremost is the open reduction. Get the good position of the femoral head under the acetabulum. Then acetabular correction would be needed.
So, sir, if the patient is elder than 8 years, then also we can do these osteotomies, sir. Not Salters,
yes.
but other osteotomies.
First is open reduction, femoral shortening, get the head inside the acetabulum. If it is reducible, you can add the triple osteotomy. Yes.
Okay, sir.
More than 8 years, if you want to have that, yes, you can say open reduction, femoral shortening, triple osteotomy. Correct answer.
Yes.
The second question, PSO, pelvic support osteotomy, would you do the this lengthening? Yes, it can be done. That is called as IHR, Alizaro hip reconstruction. You can do about amount of the valgus. In order, when you do about valgusation of the proximal femur, you need to get the mechanical axis in alignment. You can do about the distal varusation of the 10 to 15 degree. And along with the fixator, you can do the lengthening of the distal fragment. But another option would be very, very feasible, simple. You can do about the opposite epiphysiodesis in order to prevent a lot of complications. So you can add the number of the procedure according to the need of the patient. The ideal answer at the 6 years of age, femoral open reduction, femoral shortening and acetabuloplasty in a same sequence. Should not be other way around.
Sir, if already femoral head is reduced, then why we go for acetabular surgery?
Because the acetabulum is not getting remodeled. Acetabulum is there. If you see this X-ray, okay, so the acetabulum, while doing open reduction and femoral shortening, the head will come inside, but the acetabular dysplasia will remain the same. So there would not be any match between acetabulum and femoral head. And that we want to get the prevention of the osteoarthritis. If, okay, I will give the one other example. The acetabulum is like this and femoral head is like this. What will happen? Gradually the femoral head goes out of that. You can see that? Okay. And if it is like this, what will happen? The femoral head will remain in a same place in the acetabulum. Okay. So this is the acetabular dysplasia where the femoral head can go out. Okay, so and in a young child, there is a remodeling potential. So if you put the femoral head inside, gradually the acetabulum will get it developed. In the older child, it remains the same, then the femoral head can come down and that is the contact area would be less. So there would be chances, higher chances of the osteoarthritis in a less contact area.
Sir, is there any relation between the degree of valgus or varus correction and the length correction?
Yes, but valgus or varus, basically you want to say about the proximal or distal?
Sir, in
whenever
femoral
you do about the valgusization, when the mechanical axis is going away, you have to correct in that. So you need to take about that. The IHR or Elizarov hip reconstruction, you have to take in full adduction. And full adduction, you need to add the 15 degree of the further adduction in order to prevent the pelvis drop. And if whatever you are adding the 15 degree of adduction, that you need to correct in the distal varus osteotomy. Because the mechanical axis will go out of the knee in the 15 degree of the valgus.
Hitesh's question seems to be different. What is your question? Please repeat the question.
Sir, yes, sir. My question is a bit different, sir. Sir, my question is that suppose if we take valgus, we do a valgus osteotomy or a varus osteotomy, we affect the length of the limb. We affect the length of the limb. So the degree of wedge correction, which we take out. So how much does it affect the length? Is there a relation between like 10 degree for 1 centimeter, 20, like usual, they say, like in Perthes or something? So is there any correlation between?
Let me answer you. Like, see, the normal is at 135 degree. If you do varus, there will be shortening. If you do valgus, there will be lengthening. Yes. From 135, if you go up, there will be lengthening. If you go down, there will be shortening.
Yes, sir.
You cannot have a fixed judgment like 10 degree is equivalent to 1 centimeter. No, it depends on the neck length, right? If neck length is short, with 10 degree of varus, you will not get that much amount of shortening than the normal neck length, because it depends on the neck length. So we cannot have a easy rule or the quick rule by which we can say that 10 degree of varus and 1 centimeter of shortening. No, we can't have that easy rule because it depends on the neck length.
Sir, thank you.
I got your question why you are telling, because most of the postgraduate teacher will teach 10 degree adduction, 1 centimeter shortening, and you will learn all the rules like that.
So in many of the webinars it was...
That is not applicable in child, because child, the size of the child is different. That is most commonly used for the adult, more than 18 years. 10 degree of adduction, 1 centimeter shortening. But that is not always true. You need to check about the sagittal, coronal and rotational problem as well. Okay, that is a just indirect clue, but it would not be always correct. But that is a rough estimation you can do in adult, not in child.
Thank you.
And the last question about this, how can we prevent this condition? The child presented to us at 5 years. What can we do to prevent it?
Sir, like from the childhood or from this age, sir? Like
no, from childhood. See, this has not happened at the age of 4. This is a developmental dysplasia, so probably it has started at the time of birth, or like the first or the second month of the life. This has happened.
Yes, sir.
So how can we prevent this?
Sir, there is a screening program, neonatal screening program for certain patients which are at high risk of developing DDA, sir.
Okay,
in developed country, they usually do it for all the patient, but in our country, for like high risk patient, we do it.
Okay, good, right? Yeah. So there are 2 ways of doing it. The one is you do it for every child. That's called the universal screening. So every child is screened.
Yes,
how they screen? How do they screen?
Sir, the 2 things. First, it is screened by clinical tests, sir. Like Barlow's test and Ortolani test, and after that, if the Barlow's provocative test and Ortolani tests are negative, then child is not followed up. But if there is a equivocal response, or if any one of this is positive, then we check the patient with ultrasound, sir. Ultrasound screening, sir.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, Srikunj, can you mute Raj? Raj is probably, exactly. Thank you.
Yes, done, sir. Done, sir.
Yeah. So basically, you are right. The one is the clinical examination, and in some countries where ultrasound is available, they go for the ultrasound screening also. But in India, it's not easily available, so not every child can afford that, or we cannot send them because it's not easily available. So usually in our country, we rely on clinical examination, and that's what you said is Barlow and Ortolani test. They are very useful for detection of this condition. Yes. Shall we go ahead or any other question? Any other question?
Exam is the DDH case, and Dhiren Bhai has already summarized 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. So if you get any scenario, case scenario from 1 year to 8 years, it's very, very clear. Okay. So less than 1.5 years, you can say about close reduction, but more than 1.5 years, always say open reduction. And depends on the age, you can add femur and acetabulum. Femoral osteotomy, shortening, or acetabuloplasty. Okay, it's already 9:40. Dhiren Bhai, what should we do?
Yeah, let's ask them, like, do we want to continue or Srikunj, what shall we do?
It's up to you, sir. We students are fine with continuing also. It's up to your feasibility, sir.
Hitesh, how comfortable you are? We can continue and we can finish the. Yeah, let's finish this. Yeah, okay. Because already
Yes,
their
sir.
exam is
Okay.
due, so yeah. So now we go to the case 2. This is slightly different. It's a boy, 12-year, pain over left hip with a limp for last 2 months. He came walking in the OPD. And now what we are doing is, like, we are giving you the x-rays. So these are the x-rays. We will show AP and the frog-leg little. Hitesh, can we go for the next slide which shows the magnified views? Yeah, so these are the magnified views. So now the question is, what is the diagnosis?
Slipped capital
femoral epiphysis.
Okay, so
of
now
the
there is
left
an
hip.
x-ray with you, so there is no question. Now the question is slightly different and odd. Next slide, please. So what do you expect on the clinical examination?
Adduction and external rotation of the affected limbs.
Axis deviation. Axis deviation. Yeah.
Right, yes, axis deviation. What is axis deviation?
The restriction in abduction and internal rotation, which is also manifested by that
compensated
knee,
by external rotation.
shoulder.
Basically, there will be a obligatory external rotation when we'll try to flex the hip, and we cannot take it to the opposite shoulder, sir.
So knee axilla sign will be possible.
McFarlane.
Knee axilla sign, that will be positive. Right. What about the restriction of rotation? Which rotation will be restricted?
Adduction and internal rotation.
Internal rotation.
Abduction and internal rotation.
Abduction and internal.
Abduction and internal rotation.
Right. Okay. Now the diagnosis which you said is the slip capital femoral epiphysis. Why it is a misnomer?
It is actually the femoral metaphysis has migrated proximally, sir. Then the epiphysis has slipped downwards.
Yes. So what people say, or what the name says, is like it's a epiphysis which has slipped. It's not epiphysis which has slipped. The acetabulum is the epiphysis is already in the acetabulum, but it's a metaphysis which has displaced. So the correct name should be something different, but still we are calling it slip capital femoral epiphysis. Some people call it slip upper femoral epiphysis. So SUFI or SCAFI, these are the two names. Okay, next. Okay, so on examination, the anterior joint line, there is a tenderness, abduction is restricted, and it's only 20 degree. There is an external rotation, deformity, internal rotation is not possible. And when you try to carry out hip flexion, it goes into external rotation. And what you say is that knee to axilla sign is positive. Abduction and attempted internal rotation were associated with pain and muscle spasm. So basically what you said is absolutely right. That is what we saw in the examination. So now please classify this slip, whether it's acute or chronic.
It's
less than 3 weeks.
Yes. It's acute or chronic?
Chronic.
Chronic. Okay. It's a stable or unstable?
Stable.
Stable, sir.
Why?
Child
Patient
is
is able to
Child
walk.
is walking, sir.
and
Yes,
if it
go
walks
on.
with support or crutch, it's unstable.
Right. Yeah. So child came walking in the OPD, so it's a stable. Why we try to differentiate between the stable and unstable? What is the importance of that?
Treatment, sir.
Okay. How treatment is needed?
Sir, unstable SCFE requires emergency management.
Mhm. Okay, unstable requires emergency treatment. Stable.
Sir, if the patient is walking with pain, will we call it stable?
Yes. Patient is coming, has come walking to you, it's called stable. Yeah, this patient had a pain and he has come walking.
But if it is painful, will we call it stable or unstable?
Yes, stable.
See, we are
Pain
not
also
looking
is-
at the pain. Patient has come walking to the OPD means it's a stable. If patient comes with crutches, with what we call it hoping, or with the support of someone, or in a wheelchair, it's unstable. Right?
If patient is able to bear weight, it is stable. If patient cannot able to bear weight, it is unstable. Pain is always there in the slip. Okay, pain is not a criteria for stability, unstable or stable. According to loader, the patient can able to bear weight, it is stable. Patient cannot able to walk, it is unstable.
Okay.
Okay, then what about the severity? It's a mild sleep, moderate sleep, or severe sleep?
So it's a mild slip because less than 30% is
55%.
Yes, we have not measured, but from X-ray we can anticipate that it's a mild sleep. Very good. Yes, next slide, please. Yeah, so these are the magnified views. So what next? How will you treat this patient? You have made the exact diagnosis, you have classified it well. So what will be the next line of treatment?
In situ pinning.
In
for
situ
the
fixation, okay.
metabolic disorders
Vascularity of
and
the
endocrinology.
vascularity of the epiphysis we have to assess.
Okay, how will you look at the vascularity of the hip?
MRI of the hip.
MR angiogram.
MR
angio.
MRI of the hip will help.
Okay, MRI of the hip. That is for looking at the vascularity of the epiphysis. Okay, that is one. What next?
Sir, we'll do endocrinology workup to look for any risk factor.
Right. Okay. Why?
Sir,
To prevent further fractures.
There is a chance of opposite side also hip can be go under slip. So
right.
So we have to do endocrinology workup, and after that we will decide whether the risk factor, and then we'll go for in situ pinning.
Right. So before you jump for the treatment, we need to screen the patient. Yes. Next slide, please. So we need two types of information. So first of all, we have to clinically examine the patient for the endocrine disorders, and then we need to go for the laboratory investigation for the endocrine dysfunction. And also we need to look at the renal function, because many of the patients with chronic renal failure, they also have a slip. So these two things, endocrine and renal, they are different. So you have to say both clinical examination and laboratory investigations for the endocrine function and the renal function we will carry out. Okay, next. So now we are giving you few options. How will you treat this patient? Close reduction and spica, close reduction and internal fixation, open reduction and internal fixation, or no reduction and fixation?
No reduction.
No reduction and fixation.
Okay.
No reduction.
Anyone has a different difference of opinion about this? All of you are sure that you will not reduce and you will fix, right?
Close reduction and internal fixation.
Close reduction and internal fixation. Okay.
Close reduction and internal fixation.
Okay. Right. Close reduction and internal fixation, and then the second option is no reduction and fixation. Okay. Tell me why.
In a mild case, no reduction is required.
Okay, because it's mild, you don't want to reduce it. Okay, right? Then the one who said that I will close reduce, what is your argument? Your friend is saying that it's a mild slip, there is no need for reduction.
The arc of hip movements is altered, sir. So we want to get it corrected as possible.
Okay, so that's why you are suggesting close reduction.
Close reduction and internal fixations.
Okay, so there is an argument by Jai Kishore that the arc of movement is disturbed and we want to improve that. His point is right. So why not to carry out a close reduction?
Sir, if we try to reduce it, the stable SCFE can become an unstable SCFE. So
anyway, we are going to fix it.
Sir, then it will be difficult for us and the situation will be more worse. Whatever the sleep is there, it will be exaggerated. It will cause
We are close reducing it, so we are reducing it. We are not exaggerating the deformity.
While correcting, we can damage the epiphysis and lead to EVN.
So
We are not
vascularity will be
damaging.
disturbed in close reduction.
Okay, so the correct answer is no reduction and fixation, which is in other words called in situ pinning. In situ means we are not trying to reduce it and we are fixing it. So fixation and pinning, the meaning is same. And no reduction and in situ, without reduction, whatever is our position, in that position we are fixing, that's the line of treatment. Why? Next slide, please. So why we suggest that no reduction? And for that, let's go to the next picture that will explain you. So this is what we are looking at, the axial cut. The green is a physis. And you can see that the metaphysis has slipped anteriorly. We are looking at the cut section, so upper part is anterior and the lower part is posterior. Now when you try to reduce, on the back side there are retinacular vessels. Because of the persistent displacement, it has become short. And when you try to reduce it, these vessels will be torn, and ultimately that will lead to loss of blood supply of the physis and epiphysis, and that will lead to avascular necrosis. So we are not recommending reduction to avoid avascular necrosis. Right? Clear? It's mild, so that's okay whether you reduce or not, but basically we don't want to reduce it for the fear of avascular necrosis. Yeah, next question. So why do we fix?
To prevent further slip.
To prevent further slip. Okay, right. What else?
Normal growth of the epiphysis. To ensure normal growth of the epiphysis.
Okay, the normal growth of the epiphysis, that's why we fix it. Okay, let's see. We are going to learn something important. Next slide, please. Yes, anyone want to say something? Yeah, Dr. Verma, please.
Sir, to prevent secondary osteoarthritis in future.
To prevent secondary osteoarthrosis, but that's why we fix it. We reduce it with the reason, if we really want to reduce it, that is the reason, like to prevent secondary osteoarthrosis. That is applicable in a moderate to severe physis, because if you don't reduce it or if you don't do it anything, it will lead to osteoarthrosis. But the question is about fixation.
To enhance the epiphyseal closure, so it will prevent us for the slip.
Yes, so the correct answer is like we fix it so that physis get fused and that will not slip further. That is a correct answer. In situ pinning, we fix it to prevent or like to create a permanent physeal closure so that further slip does not take place. So some question about fixation, whether you will use cannulated screw or non-cannulated screw.
Cannulated, sir.
Cannulated. Why?
Cannulated.
Why?
You'll pass
Dr.
a
Thomas has
guide wire
explained
first.
that very well. Why we want to use cannulated?
Sir, because first we have to pass a guide wire. Guide wire we have to pass it first.
Chondrolysis, to prevent chondrolysis.
No, like see how cannulated screw can prevent chondrolysis.
First we have to pass a guide wire. Over that we have to pass the screw. So without
Cannulated screw has good bending strength than non-cannulated.
Length of the screw can be measured initially with the help of guide wire.
Yeah.
So we can purchase into the subchondral area of the epiphysis.
Okay, right. But no, the question is different. I'm not talking of the length. I'm asking you about the why cannulated or why non-cannulated.
Cannulated has a good resistance for bending, sir.
Bending.
Yeah. So non-cannulated is better, right?
No.
We won't have to change the.
Sir, cannulated screw causes formation of a bar, sir.
To prevent articular damage with the implant.
We won't have to change the screw again and again. Over the guide wire only we'll put it once.
Yeah, so that's the ease. The cannulated screw has a better ability, or like it's a ease that you can put on a guide wire. But the question is like, what are the other advantage of the cannulated screw? Dr. Thomas has explained that point very well.
To prevent damage to the articular cartilage, sir.
How can it prevent?
We can use dye.
Exactly. So if you use a cannulated screw, through the hole of the screw, you can inject dye. And if you have penetrated the articular cartilage, in that case, dye will go inside the hip joint. And you can make sure that your screw is longer or your tip has protruded the cartilage. So that's the advantage of cannulated screw over non-cannulated screw. Mechanically, non-cannulated screw is stronger than cannulated screw, but the advantage is it's a ease of insertion, and the second is you can check whether the tip of the screw has not penetrated the articular cartilage. Right? Coming to the second question, steel or titanium?
Steel.
Okay. Why not titanium?
Sir,
Why steel?
For the ease of implant removal.
Okay. What is the advantage of titanium?
It integrates to the bone, near normal to the bone.
It integrates.
MRI compatibility.
Yes, titanium is MRI compatible. But the problem with titanium screw is if you want to remove, the chances of screw breakage are more with titanium. If you use steel, those chances are less, but it's not MRI compatible. Okay, some of the special things which you need to remember for that particular surgery. So what are the special features of that screw, of that surgery?
Sir, up to 8 mm should be in the
Anterior aspect to the posteriorly, from the greater trochanter to the posterior direction.
Okay, why?
Because the sleep is posterior inferior and our metaphysis is anterior superior, so that's why we have to achieve the proper reduction. We have to pass from anteriorly to the posterior direction, anterior posterior direction.
Are we going to achieve reduction? We decided that we are not going to reduce it. In situ pinning means we are not going to reduce it.
The screw should be perpendicular to the physis.
Right. Yes, exactly. Yeah. So next slide, please. Okay, so this is what the in situ pinning was carried out. We are going to have 2 questions on that. Yeah, next slide, please. This is a frog leg lateral view. Please note that here you see that the reduction is achieved. It was not attempted. As soon as the limb was tied to the fracture table, the reduction took place. It was not attempted to reduce it. So this was basically in situ pinning was the aim, but reduction took place when the limb was tied to the fracture table. No internal rotation was achieved or carried out purposefully. Now the question is, what do you think about the entry site? Why it looks like ideally it should be at the lateral border, the screw tip, the head of the screw should be at the lateral border. Why it is in the bone?
The entry is anterior, sir, so it looks overlapped.
Yes, very good. Yeah. So what you said is right. The entry is from anterior side, and that's why it appears like that screw is in the bone. It's not in the bone, it is outside, but it's on the anterior aspect. Next slide. This picture will explain you this. If it's 100% reduced, then we take a lateral entry and we will be perpendicular to the physis. While when there is a slip, the metaphysis has slipped anteriorly. And in that case, when you try to be perpendicular to the epiphysis, your screw entry should be anterior. And because of that, when you look at the X-ray, it looks that the tip of the screw is not from the lateral aspect, but it is from the bone, or it is on the anterior aspect. Yeah, next slide. Now, what is your comment about the threads of the screw? They are crossing the physis. Is it okay or it is not okay?
It's okay, sir.
Ideally, three
Screw should be fully threaded.
Screw should be fully threaded. Okay. The question is like, if you really want to compress the fracture site, in that case, the screw should be in the physis. Then only you will have a lag effect. But here it is crossing the physis. Why?
So
Good hold
we are
of
just
the.
fixing it. We are not. It doesn't need any lag concept is not applied here. Only just we need a fixation. That's what the few threads should be cross the physis.
Yes.
Not to damage the physis, sir.
To close
Yeah,
the physis, sir.
Yes, exactly. We don't want to cross the physis and produce the compression at the fracture site. Our aim is to keep the screw or the screw threads crossing the physis. So ultimately that will result into bar formation and physis will fuse. So our aim is different over here than we have at the fracture. So that's why this is okay. The threads are crossing the physis. Absolutely no problem with that. Someone said about the fully threaded cancellous screw. Why fully threaded cancellous screw?
It essentially acts as a in the similar manner, sir.
This is already we have achieved with 16 mm. Why you? This is 16 mm screw. Why you want to go for a fully threaded screw?
Ease of removal of the screw.
Yes, we prefer fully threaded screws because it's easy to remove. If you look at this screw, if you want to remove the smooth portion, in that the screw threads has to cut the bone, which many a times is not possible in a young patient, and screw may break. So to avoid that, the fully threaded cancellous screw is a preferred implant in this case. Yeah, next slide.
And also, sir, washer should be used with the screw.
Okay, washer should be used. How it will help?
Screw back out.
For removal, easy removal.
Easy to identify.
Okay, the advantage of the washer is like removal, you can have a better thing, but it's not necessary all the time. See, remember, we are not, washer is used only when you want to achieve compression. Here, our aim is not to achieve compression. So really, we don't need screw, we don't need washer. Anyway, the problem at the time of removal is like we have to take out the soft tissue or the bone from the head of the screw. And washer is not going to help us anyway in that. So it's not necessary to use washer in all the patient.
Prevents sinking in and increases surface areas. Also prevents chondrolysis.
Prevent chondrolysis?
Because it increases surface area, it prevents sinking in because we are going closer to the joint surface. Suppose
yes.
if you're not using the washer, it may sink in and then it may penetrate the joints. So.
See, these are threaded screws and they will not migrate like that. They are not smooth screws, so they will not migrate into the physis. So washer is not 100% thing. If you use it, there is no problem with that. But even if you have not used it, it's okay. But in fracture neck femur, If you are going for a fixation, in that case, yes, there has to be a washer because your aim is to compress the fracture. And for that, you need washer. Here, our aim is not to compress the physis or the growth plate. We just want to use thread across it so that the bony bar forms and that leads to the fusion of growth plate. That's the aim of this surgery.
Sir,
yeah.
Sir, can we use, like in pediatric fractures, we use Knoll spin or Mood spin? Could that be used here?
Okay, right. See, what is the aim of fixation? What is the aim?
Physis closure, sir. To induce physis closure.
So we want for physical closure, we want something with a thread which is crossing the physis.
Sir.
Now, if you look for the Knoll spin or the Mood spin,
sir,
do they have a threaded portion? Knoll has some
sir,
thread,
Knoll
but that's a
has
very
thread.
but it's a very shallow thread.
Sir.
Yeah, here we want to have threads crossing the physis so that the proximal and the distal part, they cannot grow and ultimately physis fuse. So if you want to use in a smaller patient, yes, you can use a 4 mm cancellous screw, but avoid using Knoll spin or a Mood spin. Mood spin is absolutely not indicated because it's a smooth implant and it will not serve the purpose.
Okay.
This is not for fixation. This is basically for leading to the physical closure, and for that thread has to cross the physis. Threads has to cross the physis.
Sir.
Yeah. Then a lot of time you will be asked question about the contralateral pinning, and the contralateral pinning is carried out in a juvenile cases or in a patient who is adolescent with endocrine disorders. So we ask you that question, what further history or examination you will carry out. And at that point, we insisted that we need to make sure about endocrine because that is how your treatment is going to differ. Right? If it's an endocrine problem, there are very high chances that contralateral side will also slip. And in that case, it's better to fix it beforehand. Yeah. The next question and the last question is, when to remove the implant? 6 months, 12 months, 18 months?
Sir, if there is any chance of penetration or any other complication, we remove it by 9 months to 1 year, sir.
Okay.
And if there is no other complication, we can leave it like that.
Right. So basically, we don't prefer to remove the implant till the physical closure has taken place. So usually in a girl till 14 years, in boys till 16 to 18 years, we don't tend to remove the implant. We want to keep it inside so that it prevents or like basically the function is to lead to the physical closure. So usually implant removal is not required. But what you said, if there is a possibility that it has penetrated the articular cartilage, in that case we may need to remove implant. In that case also, it's not necessary to remove implant. You can take 1 or 2 threads out and that will take the tip of the screw inside and will not cause further cartilage damage. So screw should not be removed till the growth is completely over. Yes, next question. Yeah, I think there is still one more slide there.
Yeah, just a minute.
Yes. So when will you consider for the modified Dunn's procedure? Anyone has idea what is modified Dunn's procedure?
It is done in severe slip.
Mm-hmm.
Sir, in that basically we open or do an open reduction with a trochanteric flip osteotomy, and then we do the reduction, sir, and then fix it, sir.
Right. So basically in modified Dunn's procedure, we go for a safe surgical dislocation. Now you have seen that slide that the posterior retinacular vessels, they have become short. Now if you try to reduce, then these vessels will be stretched and the epiphysis will go for avascular necrosis. So to avoid that, we take out the part of the metaphysis, we shorten the neck and then we reduce it. and then we fix it. That's called a modified Dunn's procedure. So when you will consider that procedure?
In severe slip.
Yes.
For unstable slips.
Unstable slip.
It's basically when there is a severe slip, because if you don't carry out a reduction, severe slip, the metaphyseal portion will go on abutting the labrum and will initiate the articular cartilage damage and will lead to osteoarthrosis. So in that case, to reduce the slip angle, we go for this modified Dunn's procedure. Right, and the last question is about the Southwick osteotomy. When we do that, what is a Southwick osteotomy?
Sir, it's a intertrochanteric osteotomy
Yes.
with internal fixation afterwards.
Triplanar osteotomy.
Yes, basically it's a triplanar compensatory osteotomy. So whatever angulation or displacement has taken place at the metaphyseal level, we try to carry out a similar deformity or the opposite deformity at the intertrochanteric level. That's a Southwick osteotomy. Right? Any other question related to this?
Sir, in case of the severe acute sleep,
Yes.
do we do close reduction?
Severe acute sleep.
Yes, sir.
If you are sure about that, yes, in that case you can definitely, but don't go for acute sleep reduction, because there is always a fear that it may lead to avascular necrosis. So first of all, we ask one question: what is the reason why we want to differentiate between stable versus unstable? What is the importance of that?
Prognosis and the chances of the AVN.
Yes,
Chances
exactly.
of AVN, sir.
Yes, so we try to decide if it's a stable. In that case, the chances of avascular necrosis are less. In unstable, the chances of avascular necrosis are more. Right? Yeah. Any other question?
So what to do in moderate sleep?
Yeah, so in moderate sleep, if you are comfortable to go for a modified Dunn's procedure, if you are competent, because it's really surgically demanding procedure, if you are competent, yes, you can go for modified Dunn's procedure, or else carry out in situ fixation and later on go for the Southwick osteotomy. These are the two options available to us.
And sir, during the close reduction in the severe sleep, how much of amount of interrotation we have to do?
No. It's not the severe sleep or the moderate sleep. The question is about whenever you try to carry out reduction,
Okay, sir.
right? There are chances of avascular necrosis,
Yes, sir.
right? So we want to avoid those chances. That's the main aim. And longer the duration, and if you try to reduce, so more chronic the sleep, and if you try to reduce it, there are higher chances of avascular necrosis.
Sir, what is the current status of close reduction versus internal versus open reduction in nowadays, even in mild, moderate to mild case?
Okay, see the question.
Important concept. I will say that you must understand what he focused many times: in situ pinning, in situ pinning, in situ pinning. It's gold standard. Don't say about the moderate, severe. If you don't know anything about this, always say in situ pinning. So there is no question of getting how much internal rotation is required, how much you have to do close reduction. Close reduction will not have any role of the slip capital femoral apophysis. Is it clear? Okay. Please understand the gradual, which is whatever it is there, reduction should be there either open, or you should be 100% sure it should not damage the avascular necrosis. If there is AVN develops, it is irreversible and it is not going to change for the lifetime. So rather than doing, so answer is there: no internal rotation, no attempted close reduction. Please learn that. Again and again, you are asking how much about the interrotation, how much, what we'll do about close reduction, how will you do about the close reduction? No close reduction is acceptable in slip capital femoral epiphysis. Is it clear? That will clear all the doubts, because as soon as you are going to say the close reduction, it is going to hamper that for your passing in your exam. No close reduction is acceptable. It can lead to the avascular necrosis. Okay.
Sir, what will be the post-op protocol? Means after how many days can we start weight bearing?
Yeah. So what are the complication you can expect here? What complication you can expect? Again, one more point I will emphasize here: the thread of the screw should be perpendicular to the physis. So that would be maximum thread would be there on when you pass the screw on the 90 degree to the physial line. So you'll have the maximum number of the screw thread inside the epiphysis. So ideally, if there are more than 5 screw thread would be there, that will be stable. And putting one screw, you can't say it is going to be stable forever. And that is the reason, if it is unstable, you need to add one more screw. In case of the stable, you will do only one screw. So if it is stable, if it is going to be no complication, you can start the weight bearing in the 6 weeks to 3 months. Make sure there should not be any complication. If it is complicated, you need to think with the complication like chondrolysis, avascular necrosis. You should avoid deferring weight bearing for a long duration.
So can you give a clarity on when to take frog leg lateral view and when to take cross leg table lateral view, sir? Also in Perthes.
If it is stable, if it is a stable slip, you can do about the frog lateral view. If it is unstable, you can do the cross table. So that is the reason clinical examination is very important. Which patient can able to bear weight or not. Most commonly missed view in slip capital epiphysis is opposite side frog lateral. Dhiren is very nicely mentioned when to do about the contralateral pinning, but very commonly, very in a small clinic, people used to take a unilateral hip with the same frog lateral or a cross table. Always take the bilateral hip with bilateral lateral. If it is stable, frog lateral. If it is unstable, take the cross table lateral.
So what is this perfusion MRI, sir?
Yes, perfusion MRI will give you an idea about the amount of the perfusion in the femoral head. So the amount, it is indicated when you have avascular necrosis. So the avascular necrosis very commonly seen in Perthes disease, and that is the reason perfusion MRI is in. Basically, we need to inject the contrast and see about T1 image before contrast and after contrast. So we can subtract the image before and after construct and see how much is amount of the femoral head is avascular and amount of the femoral head.
But is it useful in SCFE?
In case of the, if you suspect about avascular necrosis, you can think about the perfusion MRI. In case of the complicated slip capital femoral epiphysis, yes. What amount of the AVN, what is the site of AVN, how much is reperfusion, and think about the salvage surgery for that. Yes, it is useful in avascular necrosis where the complication happens. This, what Dhiren presented, it's a non-complicated, chronic, stable, mild slip capital femoral epiphysis. If you learn one point, say the gold standard treatment at 2020 is still in situ pinning. You learn one in situ pinning. Why in situ? No reduction, same acceptable slip angle, fix it with pass the thread across the physis. In situ pinning is gold standard for slip capital femoral epiphysis. Okay, why this surgery is there then? Why modified done? Why there is Southwick osteotomy? When there is a moderate to severe slip, it cannot remodel because there is a growth arrest. Then to prevent the mechanical problem like femoroacetabular impingement. To prevent the secondary changes, we need to get about the alignment of the proximal femur, and that is the reason modified Dunn or a Southwick osteotomy. Basically, you can do the alignment of the proximal femur either at level of the physis, either at level of base of the neck, either at level of the subtrochanteric region to get the perfect anatomical alignment to prevent the secondary femoroacetabular impingement.
Yes,
Yeah, am I
anybody?
audible?
Yes, you are audible, sir.
Yeah.
Any
Yes,
question or?
Anybody is having any doubt, please proceed. Make it clear anything about Perthes, CAFE and DDH right now. Okay, Dhiren sir. So we can end lecture here.
Yes,
And,
thank you very much. Thank you.
No, sir. Thank you very much for this extensive lecture, sir. Thank you very much for your efforts and time, sir.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Thank you, Hitesh sir. Thank you, Dhiren sir. And good night, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Yeah. Kale
Yes. Bye, sir. Good night, sir. Good night.
Night, sir.
Okay, bye. Good night.